Barakatay Hawa, Ba'ashem Yahushai, Ba'ashem Racha Kodash. Welcome to another live lesson. The name of this one is The Great Siege is Upon the World. This is a title that came to me. I forget when it was. And I wrote it down because I think it would make for a good lesson to edify, the flock, especially in these times. Um, but Bakusha, let me know if you can hear me. It's pretty windy out here. And just let me know if you can hear. Um, and then when it gets real windy, if anything, goes awry, okay, the water. If anything goes awry, if you hear any like real bad wind or whatever during the lesson, if you could just alert me, and then that way I could try to put the mic a little closer. I mean, it's a beautiful day, it's nice, but it's just a little windy. But okay, so once again, the name of this lesson is called The Great Siege is Upon the World. And pretty much what you're witnessing is the ending of Babylon the Great. The end of this place, being judged by Yahweh Bashem Yahushai, because we're coming to the final, countdown, so to speak, of this wicked world, America, Babylon the Great, which America pretty much holds sway upon the whole world. She's their harlot, in the book of Revelation, who made all the nations drunk by her, by that wine that she's pushing upon the world. So there is no coincidence that there's an economic problem brewing and rising worldwide. It's not just in one country or one continent. It's worldwide. There's a reason why you have worldwide shortages. Now, it's all the Heavenly Father, Yahweh Bashem Shai, doing it, but it's being controlled, of course, by Yahweh Bashem Shai, but it's being worked on by the so-called international banking families who are pushing forward their agenda. And the reason why they're doing that is because they want to make everything digital. The World Economic Forum, the WEF, and all of these different groups, these corporations are all pushing the same agenda because they're pushing the NWO. And the NWO is going to be ultimately controlled online, digitally, by what the scriptures call the MOTB, which is the charagma, or the C hip. You put the C and the H together, you get what it's saying, and then you can put a micro in front of that. And this is why we see what's happening. So what these devils are doing is pretty much they have a grip around the world, and they actually brought a great siege upon the whole world. It's pretty much 70 AD all over again, but this time, instead of just being Jerusalem that's being surrounded, it's pretty much the whole world. So I want to start off in 2nd Ezra, the 6th chapter. I'm going to read and jump around a little bit because there's a lot in this chapter, a lot of meat that's good. So 2nd Ezra chapter 6, I'm going to start at 7. It says, Then answered I and said, What shall be the parting asunder of the times? Or when shall be the end of the first and the beginning of it that followeth? Because one thing that the prophets always wanted to know was when these things were going to be, because they understood that once the end would come, that the next step after that would be the kingdom of heaven, and it would be their reward. So they always asked when these things were going to happen, when they were going to take place. So this is what the Lord answered him. He said, And he said unto me, From Abraham unto Isaac, when Jacob and Esau were born of him, Jacob's hand held first the heel of Esau. So we have to remember that once evil came back into the world through the wicked, which are the Edomites, and when Jacob and Esau were born, that really began the end of the world. And it was really cemented when Yahweh Shai came on the earth and suffered for us, the Israelites. That also began the last days. which the last days have been going on for a while, but especially within the last 2,000 years. From the time Yahweh Shai stepped foot on the earth, that's when the last days really started. So we're now at the last days of the last days. So reading on, it says, "For Esau is the end of the world, and Jacob is the beginning of it that followeth." So pretty much what the Lord through his angel was telling Ezra was that when you see the Edomites ruling and in power around the world, then you know that that's when the end is coming. And that's the reason why all nations got a chance to rule upon the planet Earth. And Esau ended up ruling last because all of those world empires governed, and then they were taken down by who? By the Greeks. That was the first head of the seven heads, of the seven-headed beast in the book of Revelation. Then after that, who came up? The Romans. And the Greeks were pretty much brought into the Roman Empire. I forget exactly the year. I don't know if it was 23 BC around there or something like that. That's when the last of the Ptolemaic dynasty, which I believe that was Ptolemy the third and Cleopatra the seventh, were pretty much amalgamated or brought into the Roman Empire. And the Roman Empire, that was another one of the heads of the seven heads of the beast. And then their kingdom was interrupted for a brief period of time. And then they came back into power after Jake fell during the time of the Renaissance. So right now we're at the ending days of Esau's kingdom. Because once the 1300s came in, Esau started taking over. They attribute the 14th century, which is the 1300s, precisely 1330, which was about 1,000 years after Constantine the Great established the so-called Holy Roman Empire, which, he made Christianity the religion of the Roman Empire. All right, which was the the Eastern Roman Empire. Ruled from Constantinople, which was called today modern day Turkey, Istanbul, Turkey. And from that point on, it's been a downward spiral, and Esau has been ruling. He's been pushing his policies all around the world, pushing that deception plus that wine. But that wine really started being pushed heavy once America was pretty much established. So when we jump down to the 11th verse of 2nd Ezra 6, it says, "And I answered then and said, Lord, that bearest rule, if I have found favor in thy sight, I beseech thee, show thy servant the end of thy tokens, whereof thou showest me part the last night. So he answered and said unto me, Stand up upon thy feet, and hear a mighty sounding voice. And it shall be as it were a great motion, but the place where thou standest shall not be moved. And therefore, so that great motion that he saw, that he witnessed, that actually happened, was the prophecy speaking in these last days. The Lord reviving his works in these last days, as we read in the book of Habakkuk 3 and 1 on down. So we're seeing the reviving of things, because in 2nd Ezra, the 9th chapter, it says that the Lord is going to bring this world to an end by signs and by tokens. So we're seeing these tokens, we're witnessing these tokens now, and we're reporting these tokens that are happening. And one thing we do see that is very evident, if your eyes are open, is that these devils are sieging, they're laying siege to the whole earth. They're besieging the whole earth because they're moving everything into their world agenda, which is everything being digital and everything being, operated by the C hip. Put the C in the hip together, you get it, and you could add a micro at the beginning of it, which is the charagma, the M to the O to the TB. And this is the ultimate goal. It says, and therefore when it speaketh, Be not afraid. Why? Because this is the end. So right now, what we're witnessing is the end speaking, which are the prophecies or the words of the Lord leaping off of the pages of the Bible. Because the Lord said at the end it shall speak, because it was going to tarry for a while, because there have been wars and famines and pestilence and different things that happened for over 2,000 years, but never on this level that they are right now. You know, the level that these prophecies are speaking right now, never has this ever happened before. It says, "For the word is of the end, and the foundation of the earth is understood." And why? Because the speech of these things trembleth and is moved. Why? Because it has to happen, and it will happen, because the words of the Lord don't go out void. And when it starts speaking, what is it going to be? It's going to be terrible times. It's going to be things that if you're not stably, or if not stable mentally with this truth, you're going to bug out. People are going to catch heart attacks and strokes and different things of that nature for witnessing the things that are happening on the earth and coming upon the earth. You see? It says, "For it knoweth that the end of these things must be changed." Because this earth and the governors, rulers, landlords that are ruling it are unjust. And they have the world moving in an unjust way, in an unjust fashion, not keeping in mind what happened during the time before the flood, not thinking about what happened during the time of Sodom and Gomorrah and the other three cities, not even keeping that in mind, and the destruction that the Lord brought upon them when he said that the Lord saw that the earth was evil and wicked. The wickedness was great upon it. So how much more now that the whole earth, entire planet, is being inhabited, and this wine of America, Babylon the Great, is being pushed throughout the four corners of the earth, and people are following hard behind that. It says, "And it happened that when I had heard it, I stood up upon my feet and hearkened, and behold, there was a voice that spake, and the sound of it was like the sound of many waters." That's Yahushua. "And it said, Behold, the days come that I will begin to draw nigh and to visit them that dwell upon the earth." So how is the Lord going to visit the earth? How is he going to draw nigh? By his prophecy speaking. And that's how he's drawing nigh. You have, you know, the prophecies that were written aforetime, the things that were written aforetime actually happening and speaking. You know, you see everything pointing, you know, scripture speak about the MOTB. You see everything heading in the direction of, you know, everything being controlled digitally, you know, by this digital monetary system that they're putting in place. You know, and this is one of the main things that the Lord said would be happening in these times. And we're actually witnessing it, you know, along with many other things. But that's one of the main things we're looking for. Why? Because once that happens, that is what moves everything in a faster motion. When the scriptures say hasten in the day, right? It means for the Lord to hurry up and do his thing. And the faster the words of the Lord start speaking on the earth, the faster the end comes. And that's why we keep an eye on that, because this MOTB is going to cause a lot of hardships on the planet. It's going to test a lot of people on the planet, you know? And that's why the sooner it gets out, the better, because then, you know, definitely we know that everything's going to start moving lightning fast. So that's part of what it means hastening the day. Not going out there trying to make it happen yourself, but hoping that these things hurry up and happen so that the Lord can bring forth his the destruction and bring forth his righteous kingdom on the earth. So it goes on to say, "And will begin to make inquisition of them what they be that have heard unjustly with their unrighteousness, and when the affliction of Zion shall be fulfilled." So how is the Lord making inquisition of these things? By having his prophets out here speaking these things, you know, to the world, addressing who the wicked is or are, addressing the things that are not addressed, the injustices that are not addressed, the injustices that have not been made right. And that's what we see happening right now in the world. So then it goes on to say, and when the world that shall begin to vanish away, which is what? This heaven and this earth that is being ruled and governed in wickedness by Esau and the other nations, Esau being the forefront of that. It says, shall be finished. So when this world is finished, when it comes to the end, when Esau comes into power, that's going to be the end of the world. And then the next world that's coming is going to be governed by the Israelites. Yahweh Shai being at the forefront of that. Yahweh Bashem Yahweh Shai. Then will I show these tokens. So the Lord said, when this world finishes, then there's going to be certain things that are going to be shown to the world and in a certain fashion. And this is what he said. The book shall be opened before the firmament. Now, what is the firmament? The ozone layer. What are the books? The Bible. So what does that mean? That means that these words would be speaking and would be being fulfilled, and the wicked would be being revealed by what you have in the firmament, which are what? These satellites. And what is the purpose of the satellites? To receive signals from the earth to those satellites to be able to broadcast them across the world so that everybody can see. And that's why it says, the book shall be opened before the firmament, and they shall see all together. So we're at the point right now where these things are happening and they're speaking. And as they're speaking, and as these things are happening, we know that we're at the end, and we know that part of the things that they're going to do is not allow anybody to buy or sell, because they're going to be pushing this agenda of this this agenda of this digital currency known as the MOTB, which is the CHIP. All right, just gonna move a little bit. Just bear with me. All right, so I just got a couple of precepts on the word siege. I'm just gonna go through, but before we go through that, I got a definition here I want to share with you, which came to me just before the lesson started to look this up. And I'm going to the offline common dictionary. It's called siege. It says the action of an armed force that surrounds a fortified place and isolates it while continuing to attack. And that's pretty much what it is. So what they've done, a siege pretty much is done so that the people that are within that whatever it may be, whether it's a fortress, a castle, a city, or whatever, will not be able to get out, and no one would be able to come in, and they would cut off the supplies, and eventually the supplies that they have would be cut off. They would be cut off, and that's what we see happening with these so-called shortages. They are systematically, cutting off the people from the supplies that are the supplies that are out there, as far as food is concerned, mainly food and water. Those are the two main things that these devils are cutting off, is the food and the water, because they know that once they do that, they're not really concerned with paper, toilet paper, or paper toilet, as Ephraim says it, paper toilet or toilet paper being in short supply. They're not worried about tampons being in short supply. They're not worried about, any other thing being in short supply, clothing or whatever the case may be. They're really focusing on the food and the water, because that is the way you control the people. Control the food, control the people. Henry Kissinger said that. And that's how they're besieging the whole world, by controlling the very essential necessity that keeps somebody going, keeps them alive, food and water. So they besiege the whole world, and they have armed forces, because eventually the armed forces are going to get involved, because things are going to get really bad. They're going to have to send in the National Guard. They're going to have to send in the reserves. They're going to have to send in the FEMA troops and different troops that they have. Don't be surprised if they use UN troops. Don't be surprised if they use NATO troops. To once society collapses within itself, like it's done in Venezuela and other places where people just lost it. Don't be surprised when they send these troops in there. As a matter of fact, there's a precept on that which I'm going to write down. It's so goddamn windy out here. Psalms. Let's write this down so I don't forget it. But let's go to some of these precepts dealing with the siege. Just bear with me. I got to multitask here. I'm going to be turning the camera different ways. Like I said, let me know if the wind is too much, and I'll try to keep the microphone closer to my mouth. It's already close enough, but I'll try to push it closer because it's on the headset. I'm getting my Martian on right now. So let's go to some of these precepts. The first one we have is the book of Deuteronomy 28, which is a part of the curses. All right. And you have many, if you just do a word search on the word siege, you have siege and besiege that'll come up, and it comes up a lot of different times because there were many different sieges. You had the Assyrians that besieged Jerusalem. You had the nations that besieged each other. You had the Babylonians that besieged, Judah, the southern kingdom. You had the Romans that besieged Jerusalem, And so there's many different sieges in the Bible during the time of the Maccabees, so on and so forth. So Deuteronomy 28, we're going to start at 47. It says, and this is the purpose for these curses to come upon us. It says, because thou servest not the Lord Yahweh, thy power, with joyfulness and with gladness of heart, for the abundance of all things, right? Because the Lord gave us everything. And what did we do? We forsook the Lord. We didn't hearken unto him after our forefathers made that blood oath, that blood agreement, the covenant, the contract with the Heavenly Father. We didn't keep our bargain, our part of the bargain, which we understand, why. We understand there's a bigger picture, but we're dealing with it on the surface level. It says, therefore shalt thou serve thine enemies, which the Lord shall send against thee, in hunger and in thirst and in nakedness and in want of all things. So pretty much we will have to serve this devil in the one of all things. So what's happening right now, we're still serving them for the one of all things, but what these devils are doing is they're laying siege across the whole world. It says, and he shall put a yoke of iron upon thy neck until he have destroyed thee. And all you have to do is put yoke of iron and hit images on Google, and you'll see that Jake, the southern kingdom, Judah, they're going to be the ones coming up with yokes of irons upon their neck. They put yokes of iron on the so-called Latin tribes and the so-called, Native American Indian tribes, which they're all Indian tribes, so-called Indian tribes. But for the most part, that really fell upon Judah. And just building on the word Latin, there's a term called Latinx. And first time I heard it was from an elder pastor. I never heard it before. And he said, you heard about the word Latin? You know what Latinx is, right? I said, no, I don't. And he explained it that's what they call it, the so-called Latinos now. So what I thought about at the time was Latinx, unknown Latin. So maybe they're saying that these are aliens. That's why they call them Latinx, because every time you have a word X, it's usually unknown. And that's pretty much the conventional thinking that I had, at the moment, because I had not done any research on it. I never heard about it. So earlier this morning, I was watching Democracy Now! With Amy Goodman and her co-host Juan Gonzalez. And he was pretty much breaking the term Latinx down. And, what it is he's saying that the reason why they're saying Latinx is because it's a non-binary term. Right? So what I thought immediately was, okay, so a non-binary term means that they don't want to identify gender. So they don't want to say Latinos and Latinas. They rather say Latinx to include, that whole rainbow movement, the alphabet people. So I said, you see, and that's why I never, even from when I heard it, I never used it. and I never cared to use it, and now I understand why. Because it's something used to include the alphabet people, you know. So I just wanted to mention that since I heard about that earlier. So that's what Latinx means. It means a non-binary, so you don't have to say Latino or Latina. So you can say Latinx, and it includes the flamers, the transmissions, you know, the carpet munches, the rest of the alphabet city situation. So going back to Deuteronomy 28, and now we're going to the 49th verse. Like I said, please let me know if the wind is disturbing the microphone, so I can adjust. It says, "The Lord shall bring a nation against thee from far, from the end of the earth." Now, some of these curses applied in different time periods. Sometimes they would apply during the Assyrian Empire, during the Babylonian Empire, the Greeks, the Romans, all the way up until today, to the so-called Americas, because these were curses that would be following us and our children no matter where we would go. Okay? So it goes on to say, of nation of fierce countenance, which shall not regard the person of the old, nor show favor to the young. And he shall eat the fruit of thy cattle and the fruit of thy land until thou be destroyed. Right? Because what they're doing right now, that's what they would do in the siege. You would be relegated to, you might have the city, but then you might have a place where you congregate, where it's like a defense, and you have food there, but the rest of the other food that was outside of your reach, now the person that besieged you, they're eating that, and your supplies are now even shorter than they would have, than they are, because you can't fortify them because they cut you off from them. So the whole world right now is under a great siege. It says, "And he shall eat the fruit of thy land until thou be destroyed, which also shall not leave thee either corn, wine, or oil, or the increase of thy kind, or flocks of thy sheep, until he have destroyed thee." So it says nothing about clothing, shoes, you know, curtains and furniture and wood. It talks about mainly what? Food and water, because those are the main things that are needed for survival, and those are the main things that run out in a siege. You don't run out of clothing, you don't run out of anything else, but you run out of food and water. "And he shall besiege thee in all thy gates, until thy high and fenced walls come down, wherein thou trustest throughout all thy land. And he shall besiege thee in all thy gates throughout all thy land, which the Lord thy power hath given thee." So right now they have like an invisible wall around the whole world. It's a siege upon the whole world. And the way that they're doing it is destroying the supply of everything, destroying the economies of all nations, and which drives the prices of everything up through inflation and eventually hyperinflation. We haven't really hit hyperinflation yet, because when it comes, you'll know. You know, so that's what they're doing, and they're they're going to starve the people out. To accept this new world order, or the new way that they plan on doing things, which is all going to be digital. So these leaders among these other camps that have been staunchly against the MO to the TBB and the C hip, are looking stupid now, because everything is heading and being manifest that the C hip is exactly what the MOTB is all about. Because it says that no man may buy or sell. And buying and selling means what? Being able to eat. Because if you can't sell, you ain't gonna have no money. If you can't buy, you can't, you won't be able to buy any of the goods. And that's where they're systematically shutting everything down, burning down all of these different food manufacturing places, destroying the cattle, destroying livestock, destroying any form of food that's out there, and destroying processing places where they make these foods and destroying, warehouses where these foods are at. It's systematic, man. It says, "And thou shalt eat the fruit of thine own body, the flesh of thy sons and of thy daughters, which the Lord thy power hath given thee, in the siege and in the straitness wherewith thine enemies shall distress thee." Right. And that leads into what? Cannibalism. And that's what the great siege does. It leads it leads into cannibalism, because if you don't have any food, what's going to happen? Eventually, people, are going to start eating each other, eating their children, eating the most vulnerable. We work with this guy that said, if something like this goes down, and it's between me and Fido, talking about his dog, he said Fido's going down. So in other words, he's gonna have barbecue dog. He don't give a shit. Barbecue cat, barbecue dog, all squirrels and rabbits and chipmunks and everything that you see around us is gonna be gone, because people are gonna eat it up. And when all of that runs out, they're gonna eat each other. And that's why this is a worldwide thing. It says that even the preppers that go into these mountains are gonna run out of those supplies. And eventually what's going to happen? They're going to resort to eating themselves and drinking the blood of the ones that they kill because of hunger and thirst. So now I got a couple other precepts here. Let's go to 2 Kings 6. And before, we're going to go back to Deuteronomy 28, Lord's will. But let's go to 2 Kings 6. The point is in the 25th verse, but I want to read up above that. Hopefully we get a good spot that we can read up from 6, and let's see. Right, this was the siege of the Assyrians against the northern kingdom. Right, let me see what this says here. All right, so the point is let's start at 24. 2 Kings 6 and 24. And it came to pass after this that Ben-Hadad, king of Syria, gathered all his hosts and went up and besieged Samaria. So they besieged Samaria because I believe, if I'm not mistaken, Elisha prophesied that there was going to be a famine, right? And he said, and there was a great famine in Samaria. Why? Because they were besieged, and what happened? Their supplies got cut off. So what are these devils doing right now? They're putting a stranglehold on the world by cutting off the supply, through these supply chains, especially of food. And what did they do? They played these people by saying there was a shortage of toilet paper at the beginning, the shortage of baby formula. You got people fighting over baby formula. You got Moabites. This Moabite lady that took all of the baby formula that they had on the shelf, and the other lady that came to get some for her baby couldn't get none. Why? Because that Moabite lady took them all. Now you go to these different places like Walmart and places like that, and they have the baby formula locked up behind, you have to unlock it all the way in the front of the store, because people are going wild and crazy over that stuff. But it's all leading everybody to the bigger picture, or the bigger problem, which is going to be the lack of food, period. So he besieged Jerusalem. It says, and there was a great famine in Samaria, and behold, they besieged it, until an ass's head was sold for 80 pieces of silver, and the fourth part of a cab of dove's dung for 5 pieces of silver. So what happened? The prices of everything were driven up. And like Elder Pastor went into Revelation 6, that there's going to come a time where a measure of wheat and 3 measures of barley are going to be sold for a penny, which is a day's wages. So these shortages are going to cause prices to go up. And then also, what's going to happen is that the um, the these shortages are going to drive the prices up, and the lack of food is going to cause people to have to pay a whole lot more because when you have shortages, you have something called supply and demand, and then you have something also called price gouging. You know, which is really supposed to be um, illegal, but they don't give a damn. You want this, you got to pay so and so and such and such. Um, I forget what movie that was. I was just watching it recently too. Where Blackout, the movie American Blackout, where the dude and his woman, when they went into this place, the guy was selling gallons of water, and he offered $20 for a gallon. Then he offered $40 for a gallon. And I believe he went up even to $100 for a gallon of water. And what do you think the people are going to do? They're going, all right, cool, give me that. You want to give me the 200? Give me $200 for this. So it's going to cause people to pay a whole lot more for food and for things, supplies, than they would normally do. Because these devils got to see, and that's what happens when you have a siege. Everything is cut off and cut short, and you have to pay exorbitant amount of money to get the essentials that you would normally get for a regular price, right? So okay, so and then it goes on to speak about I believe this goes on to it goes into this same account goes into a woman boiling her child and then eating it with another woman, and the other woman didn't want to give up her child. Straight up, just nastiness, man. So now let's go to Isaiah chapter 1, and this is going to affect the world. But you Israelites out there that have been taking this thing for a joke, that have been making light of this, you're going to really feel this crunch, especially you Jakes in America that are fat and lazy and are used to eating. You can't go 10 minutes without stuffing your face with something. You're gonna catch hell, man. Your body's gonna go into eating mode, and your body's gonna have a lot to eat for a while. But eventually a lot of you gonna starve to death because your body's gonna eat itself because there's gonna be nothing there. You're gonna have no more goddamn pork chops, no fucking hot Cheetos, you ain't gonna have sour cream potato chips and big ass fucking gallons of of uh of um the 7-Eleven, frosty, whatever those them damn things are called, sucking that shit down. You ain't gonna have none of that. You won't catch hell. The Lord said, my servants shall eat, but you shall hunger. You made light of the Lord's word. The Lord don't take kindly to ninjas that take his word lightly. Isaiah chapter 1 and 8. And the daughter of Zion is left as a cottage in a vineyard, meaning desolate, as a lodge in a garden of cucumbers, as a besieged city, meaning there's going to be nothing there. When you besiege a city, ain't nothing coming in, ain't nothing going out. So if ain't nothing coming in, guess what? Once the supplies run out, what's going to happen? Starvation is going to take place. Now let's go from there to Jeremiah 19. Because these devils have besieged the whole world. The great siege is upon the whole planet. Isaiah chapter 19, and let me see where we're going to start. Okay, 8. Jeremiah 19 and 8. And I will make this city desolate and in hissing. So you have to apply the besieging of a city to the whole entire world. And the cutting off of the supplies to the whole world. It says, and hissing. Everyone that passeth thereby shall be astonished and hiss because of all the plagues thereof. And I will cause them to eat the flesh of their sons and the flesh of their daughters, and they shall eat every one the flesh of his friend in the siege and straightness wherewith their enemies and wherewith their enemies and they that seek their lives shall straighten them. So you're being straightened. You're being put in a position of difficulty. These are those perilous times that the Lord spoke about that would happen, that are coming upon the world, that are coming upon, you Israelites out there, because these are sent as scourges for amendment. Because you refuse to turn back to the Lord, so the Lord know how to get you. It says, "Then shalt thou break the bottle in the sight of the men that go with thee, and shall say unto them, Thus saith the Lord power of hosts, even so will I break this people and this city, as one breaketh a potter's vessel that cannot be made whole again. And they shall bury them in Tophet till there be no place to bury." Yeah, and that goes into, the valley of Hinnom, Gehenna, the valley of slaughter. Because the Lord he's bringing judgment. The ultimate judgment are those missiles and the lasers from the chariots. But before that, there's going to be a great insurrection and a great slaughter upon the people of the Lord. All right, so now let's go. Let's go from there. Let's go to Nahum 3. Now this is dealing with Assyria, which also applies to America today, Babylon the Great. Um, let's see where we could start. Excuse me. Verse 12. It says, "All thy strongholds shall be like fig trees with the first ripe figs. If they be shaken, they shall even fall into the mouth of the eater." Yeah, and who's the eater in these times? These international banker families. And they ain't gonna have no mercy upon nobody. They don't give a shit about nobody. They view the world as useless eaters. If you're not helping them push their agenda, you're a useless eater. And even if you use them, even if you help them push their agenda, they're still, the scriptures say that they that consent unto them shall be had in derision. Because once they don't need you, they discard you. Get that through your thick skull. Then it goes on to say, "Behold, thy people in the midst of thee are women." Right, and that's what's going to happen. This is dealing with back then Nineveh, today America. But let's paint this picture to the world. The world as a whole is the men are going to become as women. They're going to be helpless. Because when you besiege a city or when you fight against a city, who are the first to go? The women and the children. So these people are going to be turned into women. Why? Especially here in America, where the average man doesn't, the average man or family doesn't know what the hell to do in a situation when the lights go out, in a situation when you can't go to the grocery store, when you can't go to the chicken, the crackhead chicken shack. You can't go to the pizza store. You can't go to McDonald's or Burger King or Wendy's or Taco Bell. When you can't go to your 7-Eleven and get you an iced coffee, or one of them goddamn nasty ass Frosties, whatever that shit's called. It says, hold on for a second. It goes on to say, I'll read it again. "Behold, thy people are in the midst of thee are women. The gates of thy land shall be set wide open unto thine enemies. The fire shall devour thy bars." Right. That would be like a siege. "Draw thee waters for the siege. Fortify thy strongholds. Go into clay and tread the mortar. Make strong the brick kiln." So now, how do we do that today? What is the stronghold? This truth. Psalms 91:1. This is the stronghold. And what do? We're fortifying, the defense by doing the work, and that's building up, that invisible force field around us. Like the Lord said, He would make Jeremiah a brazen wall, and that's why you've heard Elder Pastor or other brothers say, now that you have the opportunity, before shit gets too crazy, get you some extra water, some canned goods, some rice, some dry beans, you know, um, some quinoa, because the quinoa has a lot of fiber and a lot of protein. So when you can't eat meat or whatever the case is, that's a good source of protein, a good source of fiber. You know, some amaranth. You know, just different things like that. Dried goods that could last a while. Just in case shit goes down and you can't get it. Now that's not going to save us. But if you have wisdom and you know that shit's about to go down and you have the ability to prepare, prepare for something. Now let's say the case be you don't have it like that and you can't. Well, the Lord is gonna make a way for you to be protected and be taken care of when the time comes. If you're a part of the elect, you're gonna be good. But if you do have the ability to do it because you never know that little extra you get might be able to help you, might be able to help another brother and his family. Because shit is gonna get hard out here. We're just seeing the tip of the iceberg because these devils have put a siege on the world. Um, let's see if there's anything else there. Okay, so let's go from there. Let's see what else I got here on the list. Let's go to Zechariah. See what that says. Yeah, when I read this little bit here in Zechariah, this brought to mind what we were speaking about this on the way to camp. We had a little bit of a hard time getting to camp because there was a lot of traffic. So, but Spirit allowed us to get there eventually. Let's see. Yeah, and the elder pastor was speaking about, like, if you try to put Jake back into captivity now, you're gonna have a hard time, man, because Jake ain't having that shit. They're gonna fight tooth and nail against you. And when I read this precept, it brought that to mind, or brought it back to mind. Zechariah 12:1. The burden of the word of the Lord for Israel, saith the Lord, which stretcheth forth the heavens and layeth the foundations of the earth and formeth the spirit of man within him. It's heavy. Behold, I will make Jerusalem a cup of trembling unto all the people round about, when they shall be in the siege, both against Judah and against Jerusalem. Yeah, because this world siege that's happening, you're going to have the tribes that are going to come out swinging. The ones that are not a part of this, they're going to come out swinging. The Lord said when he had, bent Judah and filled the bowl with Ephraim, the remnant of the house of Israel is going to be among many nations. There's going to be class wars, but there's also going to be race wars. You're going to try to come against Jake. Jake going to do what they got to do. A lot of them are going to get slaughtered, but the Lord is going to be with certain Jakes to do what they got to do out there. But this is all going to be done because of the necessity of food. Just like when Yahushua warned, Jake back then, that when you see Jerusalem compassed with armies, know that the desolation thereof is nigh, meaning it's near. Then flee to the mountain. If you have the presence of mind, that's what the Lord was telling them back then in so many words. If you have the presence of mind to see these things when they happen, flee into the mountains. Don't stay in Jerusalem. Don't go into your house and get anything. Just get the hell out of there. Because like it says in Luke, it said, these be the days of vengeance. And then he said that they would entrench thee. They would encamp against thee. And what happened was the supply chain back then was cut off from coming into Jerusalem. And eventually the supplies that they had, they ran out of. The sacrifices that they had, they eventually ran out of those sacrifices to sacrifice for the Lord. And eventually the Romans came in and took them down. So right now, the Romans, the Edomites, they have sway over the whole world, and they have besieged the whole world financially and through this supply. And this is why they had people dependent on the government, not just for food stamps and for money or for benefits, but also to have set up these big um, corporations and these big business box stores, these restaurants where you can go through the drive-through, fast food restaurants, because they got the people lazy because nobody wants to cook anymore. No, it'd be surprising to see if people could even boil water anymore. But that was what they did. Got people dependent on the government, like the pigs of the Oiki Finoki, or however the hell you say that, with George Gordon. They got the people used to that. So now, once they cut that off, the people are going to have no other way to survive because they're dependent solely on the government to do these things for them. So, what do you think is going to happen? They're going to have to comply with the demands and the particular things that the government wants them to do. And the government wants them to do what? The affairs of the international banking families, which are the rich men of this world, which is the MOTB, to put in the CHIP into people under their skin to be able to either buy or sell or to be able to function in society, to so-called go back to normal. These devils, man, they're wise in wickedness, and the Lord gave him that to be able to do that. So the last scripture I'm gonna leave you with is one of my favorites of all time. Love this scripture. I remember first reading it. It just blew my mind. It's in the book of Psalms, the 124th chapter, and I'm gonna read the whole thing. It's only 8 verses long. If it had not been the Lord Yahweh Bashem Yahushai who was on our side, now may Israel say, if it had not been the Lord Yahweh Bashem Yahushai who was on our side, when men rose up against us. That's why it says that when the enemy shall come in like a flood, which is those militaries, the Lord shall lift up a standard against him, which is some type of some type of spiritual intervention that's going to take place, where the Lord is going to protect his elect. Then they had swallowed us up quick when their wrath was kindled against us. Yeah, because their power is a lot stronger than ours. We don't have the ability to resist them. That's why we need the intervention from on high. That's why King David prophesied thousands of years ago, who will lead me into the strong city. They were kicking Esau's ass back then. They slaughtered every male in Edom, in that land. So it wasn't talking about back then. It's talking about now, in these times, where Esau would have control of the whole planet, because Esau is the end of the world. And they have that military might. The scripture even says that that no one was able to make war with the beast. Then the waters had overwhelmed us, and that's the floods of waters of these armies of Esau. The stream had gone over our souls. They would totally annihilate us if the Lord wasn't on our side, if the Lord didn't protect us, if the angels of the Lord, Yahweh Bashem Yahushai, didn't encamp around us. They would be able to take us out easy. They've tried many different ways and haven't been able to, because the Lord's still preserving us. They put all type of poison in our foods and the liquors that we drink and everything, in the air and the medication, and Jake is still kicking. So Barakatah Yahweh Bashem Yahushai for that. Then the proud waters, which is Esau, had gone over our soul. Blessed be the Lord Yahweh Bashem Yahushai, who hath not given us as a prey to their teeth. So as the whole world is in a siege, and Esau is systematically taking this world down and pushing the people into a corner to where they're going to have to accept the only means of operation in the world, which is the CHIP, which is the MOTB in the scriptures. The elect of the Lord Yahweh Bashem Yahushai are going to be protected, are going to be fed, are going to eat. Our soul is escaped as a bird out of the snare of the fowlers. So you have a bird. A fowl is a bird. A fowler is a bird catcher. You have an actual bird catcher that sets a trap. The bird is in the trap. The bird is caught in the trap, but something happens to where that trap is broken. The snare is broken and we are escaped. So there's going to be a way for us to escape. Whatever these devils have planned, there's going to be a way for Lord's will we be the elect to escape these things that are coming upon the earth. Our help is in the name of the Lord Yahweh Hashem Yahushai, who made heaven and earth. And that's why it's so important to know those names and call upon those names constantly, because that is where our help lies. That is the only place that we have a chance, to survive in. There's no way, no other way that we're going to be able to function in these times without the Most High and Yahushai and those names and calling upon those names, Yahweh and Yahushai. That is our great help. That is our strong tower. That is the secret place of the Most High. That's how the Lord is going to set us up on high. Meaning that when the world is being totally devastated by these things, the elect will be as if they were elevated into the sky and not being able to be touched by any of these things, although they're on the earth in the midst of all of these people out here. And those are the times that we're in, and those are the times that we're heading into, even worse, the time of Jacob's trouble. So the great siege is upon the world, but the Lord Yahweh Hashem Yahushai is on our side, and He will protect us and take care of us. So with that, I pray that you sincere brothers out there, and you few sisters have been edified. And so, like I haven't been, paying attention to the comment board because I had got the camera pointing in a different direction. So with that, shalom.